Thanks for coming out on the dreary Saturday to talk about getting your film seen. I'm Susan Wrubel. I'm the executive director here at Aspen Film. Thanks. We have, thank you. Wait till you hear about our guests. So we have another great panel lined up with some of the industry's best and brightest and most fun kids on the stage right now. So I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves first, and you'll get a sense of who everybody is and, you know, sort of the landscape, and then we'll kind of get into a casual conversation about, you know, how do you get your film seen once you've made it? And that will talk about festivals as well as releases, digital platforms, etc. So we have Jake Hanley, we have Claudette Godfrey, we have Pira, and we have Sarah Lash, and I'm going to let each of them take a second to introduce themselves.
Cool. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jake Hanley. I run acquisitions for Gunpowder and Sky, which is a studio and distributor based in New York and LA. We produce and develop and finance original content, feature films, television shows, web series, etc., as well as distribute third-party content, mostly in the feature film and documentary space. You know, do multi-platform releases and theatrical releases in the US, you know, digital releases, streaming sales, foreign sales, etc. So I run the acquisition side, which is basically finding the content that we like and think is going to be a good fit for our company and brand, and identifying that.
Thank you.
I'm Claudette Godfrey. I work at South by Southwest, which is a big music, interactive, and film festival in Austin, Texas. I'm a senior programmer. I oversee all the shorts programs, work on the feature programming, and I'm also basically the operations manager, so I can answer any questions about that. And that's it. That's my full-time job.
Hi, I'm Pira. I'm on the curation team at Vimeo, which means I'm mainly responsible for curating the Staff Picks channel. And another part of my job is I also curate the Vimeo on-demand platform, which is an open platform for filmmakers, distributors, sales agents to self-release films on Vimeo. So I do both of those things and go around to festivals, meeting filmmakers, and helping them figure out their online release.
Hi, I'm Sarah Lash. I do acquisitions for Conde Nast Entertainment's network, digital distribution network, and that represents a 22 brand group of channels, and that ranges from Vogue to The New Yorker to Vanity Fair to Bon Appetit. And some channels are more acquisitions oriented than others, you know, Wired, Vanity Fair, and The New Yorker. But we're focusing primarily on short form content. And I acquire short films to complement our distribution, our production pipeline.
Excellent. So you'll see that we have a variety of sort of distribution outlets, and I sort of look at Claudette is one of the first stops. You know, if you've made a film and you are looking to go to a festival, South by is a great one, as is Aspen Shortsfest. Actually, I just realized I forgot to make a little announcement, so we're going to hit pause for a second. Along with Vimeo, Kodak is working with us this year, and we have a great workshop this afternoon that Kodak is doing, and that's going to be at the Aspen Public Library at 2 p.m. So if you haven't had enough immersion in cinema and want some hands-on, Aspen Public Library, 2 to 4 p.m., and there's a second one tomorrow down at the Temporary Theater in Willits/Basalt, which is at 10 a.m. So please feel free to check those out. They're free. I think you can sign up online. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So essentially, you've made a film. You're wondering, what do I do? How do I get it out there? How am I going to get people to see it? So one of the first inclinations that people have is to submit to festivals. And oftentimes festivals are the launch pad for some sort of acquisitions. But I think as all three of you can attest, you often look at things before they even hit the festival circuit. So I'd like to sort of talk about the differences there. And I was going to start with Claudette since she is the programmer, but I actually think, Sarah, you had actually mentioned to me that, oh, I'm coming to Shortsfest. I know what the lineup is. We're going to reach out to filmmakers ahead of time. So why don't you talk about that process first and why you're trying to track these so early?
Sure. So okay, that's better. So the reason why we reach out to filmmakers in advance of a film festival and request the lengths is filmmakers are game to do that, and if I see a film in advance and I like it, then I have the opportunity to set a meeting in advance with the filmmaker on the ground at the festival, and we'll be able to have a hit the ground running conversation versus, me seeing the film at the film festival. Maybe they leave before I've had a chance to come to a decision, and that's just a lost opportunity. And then on top of that, I think shorts buying is becoming a somewhat more competitive playing field, and I think that, everyone is doing the same thing. Not everyone, but close to everyone is doing the same thing, and I think it levels the playing field a bit, having seen something in advance. But I think more than anything, it's the efficiency of being able to arrive at the festival and being able to have, a constructive meeting right out of the gate. So. And then also it's the ability to share with colleagues, because I'm sort of a gatekeeper for all of the brands, and if I see something I like for the New Yorker or Vanity Fair, then I'll be able to refer it on to the editorial decision makers at that particular brand, have a conversation with them about it, since it is a multifaceted decision-making process. So that's another big reason.
Great. And then Ina, in terms of Vimeo, where do you sit in that process?
Well, we work with filmmakers at different steps in their sort of like their festival circuit, but we also talk to them because we work with many filmmakers that have been staff picked previously, so we know what they're working on. For the most part, filmmakers come to us after they've done the festivals, but that's more and more sort of changing. Filmmakers are now doing the festival circuit while releasing online, or releasing online and doing the festival circuit after. So it really just depends on the film. We're coming in at very different points now, where more traditionally used to be after the festival circuit.
Right, and I want to get into that a little bit further as well and talk about the award and your relationship with South by. But Jake, in terms of sort of pre-buying shorts, what's Gunpowder and Sky's whole take on everything?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm bringing a little bit of a different perspective than these folks here, because the majority of my job is oriented around feature film and sort of longer form content. So while we do look for to pick up some short films or kind of short series, that isn't as much of a priority, but I think just generally it's always helpful for me to see stuff as early as possible in the process, and we really look at shorts as a great way to identify talent for larger scale projects that we may be developing, or even just to kind of develop a relationship with filmmakers that we think are going to go on to do bigger and better things. So really look at festivals like this as a great way to track talent before a lot of other people are looking at them. And I'm not always so lucky as to get to screen a lot of shorts at festivals, so it's great to come to a place like this and see some really amazing talent. And even just from the couple of blocks that I've been able to see, I'm already reaching out to some producers and saying, I really love this short. What are they doing next? Do they have a feature idea or some other kind of project that they want to pitch? So it's just a great way to sort of develop new relationships and track new talent.
Great. So now bringing it all home to you, Claudette. You are very much a gatekeeper in terms of the community and films that are programmed. You sit calendar-wise before Aspen Shortsfest. You have an amazing and robust program, which I think some of it may look similar to this and some of it's a little bit different. Would you mind getting into detail a little bit about your process and sort of how you interact with all the different companies and your thought process that goes into programming?
Okay. So last year we got 8,000 or 8,500 total submissions. Shorts make up about 5,500 of those. Of those, about 3,400 are narratives, so that's like the #1 most competitive category. At the festival, we screen, depends on how you count. Like, we do a title sequence screening, which most people don't do title sequences. We do music videos, again, kind of a unique thing that we do. And then we have like a whole VR section, which is a little bit different, but it's still kind of intertwined. We do 3 narrative programs, 2 docs, animated, a Texas focus program. We do a thing for Texas high schoolers. So it's like very broad, like a general type program, because that's the #1 thing people are always asking is like, what kind of movies do you program? And I'm like, anything, like as long as it's great and we love it, which is the primary focus. And that's kind of, part of what Ina was saying is, as things have changed, I mean, South by has never had any firm rules about things being online before the festival. We've always been pretty open. It's like we want to play every single thing that we love, and so we don't put any kind of anything to block that. Like, it doesn't matter your premiere status at all. Like, one of the best examples is Brian and Charles that's playing here. It was online for like 8 months, and then when they came to South by, they're like, we've never even thought we would go to a festival. Like, it was like their first time going to a festival. It had been online for 8 months. So a few people had seen it, but a lot of people hadn't. And I love that movie. But for us, we start with like 55 for shorts. We have an entire, group of screeners who.
I was going to say, how many on your programming team for shorts?
Well, we don't have that many people who are actually programming. We do have a lot of, we call them screeners. They're basically, most festivals have them. It's people who are getting paid or getting, working for a badge, people who are in the industry or, program at other festivals, and just who have kind of the taste. Like, some of them are film teachers, some of them are filmmakers, or just like people who go to every festival because that's what they do besides their accounting job, where they're super passionate about it. So we have a pretty curated team. For shorts, it's probably 50 people that are working on it. And then I myself, another programmer who works in our office, Gabe, is the other shorts programmer. And then we have 3 associate programmers who watch a really high volume and have a very good keen eye in terms of what they know that I like. So even if they know, they're like, I'm not super into this, but this is for Claudette, So, people always think like, oh, I'm getting missed, or like that's the number one thing. I'm getting missed, or no one even watched my film, and that is not true at South by. It's like pretty much, unless I watch it and I decide, everything's getting watched. Some things this year got 5 or 6 watches, when we got down to those final rounds, because all of the programmers are watching them once they make it kind of popping up. And I'm also doing a lot of cold watching, because on the first day of submissions, no one else has vetted anything, and I'm already starting because the volume is so high and it takes so long. So that we do submissions starting in the end of June. Those go through mid to late October, and we do offer extensions for people who are like wrapping up. You just have to ask for one. Into like the beginning of December, pretty much we'll offer to anyone. And then we kind of start wrapping up our program over Christmas, but really the first couple weeks of January are prime time to finish it out. And then so we're mostly wrapped up before Sundance. Okay. And then we go kind of make our final decisions, our Sundance decisions there. But also, because it is like, these are all people that I'm like interacting with in a way of like everything that's selected, I'm actually make a industry album of every single film, and it's going out to all of the other people who are like waiting, so they can set their meetings, so they can like offer staff pick premieres to people. And like the looking for talent thing is probably the majority of people who are getting those like industry pre-looks so they can make plans before the festival, or, agents or acquisitions people who are just looking for that fresh talent to kind of pull from. My favorite anecdote about it is that people are always like, okay, this is great, but like, what's your favorite movie from these movies? Which it's like, ultimately when you're saying like, oh, you do narrative and documentary, it's like 40 movies that are selected. And I'm like, well, I picked these out of the 5,500 for you. You can, find the ones you love there. Because everybody's also looking for really different things. Yes. And that's always another number one question is for us, and it always sounds so, it's vague, but it really is like that magic is like when I'm watching a movie that I am like sitting forward in my seat, that like nothing can distract me, because most of the time I'm watching at home. I have a really giant TV. I watch everything on Vimeo, watch later. So if you don't submit via Vimeo link, you are definitely getting watched later, because I just skip them. I just skip it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll have like another day where I watch all this other stuff. So I just like sit in front of my TV for 8 to 12 hours a day, watching stuff in a row and going through, and kind of like, there's no formula for it, like someone said on a panel yesterday of like, oh, how do you get a successful career? Like, there's a million right answers, and there's so many different types of film. But we do also play, the only thing we don't play is more family-friendly content, and we do have an area where we have like the stuff that's like censored off of YouTube that is also gonna play at South by Southwest, because we just have a really diverse audience. But we're just looking, we do play longer things. We accept anything between like, it can be 5 seconds to up to 40 minutes, because we follow the Academy guidelines, because we are Academy qualifying for doc, narrative, and animation. And then within that, it's just really looking for that kind of like magic, fresh voice. Or I always say, like, it's about the story, and it's just, I need to see a story I haven't seen before, or I just need to see it from a perspective I haven't seen before. So, but then some stuff, it's like, when you love it, you love it. It's whatever.
Awesome, thank you. So I think everybody's getting a little bit of a sense of how everyone interacts. I wanted to throw it sort of back to you, since Vimeo has such an intrinsic relationship with South by, and even the relationship that we're building with you. Vimeo has come on as a sponsor with us this year, and we could not be more excited. And they're actually giving a Vimeo Staff Pick Award. So Aspen Shortsfest is the second festival in the country that is participating with them. So this is something we're really proud of. We're so flattered that you've chosen us after South by to bestow this award. So I just wanted to have you talk a little bit about staff picks in general, sort of the toolkits that Vimeo offers to filmmakers and what that looks like. And I think that'll help inform, what you do side by side as well.
So I'm part of a 5-person curation team. I like to think of us as sort of the nonprofit within Vimeo, and our focus is to find the filmmakers that are sharing their films on the site and help connect them with audiences so they can, after they've done the festival circuit or while they're doing it, still find a worldwide audience that maybe may not be able to attend the amazing festivals that we're so privileged to go to. So through that, we go to festivals, and we are always watching all of these films, and we realize we don't have a formal submission process for staff picks. The way that we usually do is that we go through the site, we have relationships with filmmakers, and we go to festivals. And we wanted to create a way for filmmakers that were screening in these festivals whose programs we really like to come to us directly and say that they want to be staff picked. So after 10 years of doing staff picks, we decided it was time to turn it into an award. So, we're looking at the festivals whose programming we've liked, and historically we've staff picked so many films out of South by and so many films out of Aspen, so it's felt like a natural fit. And our team is pretty democratic, so every decision for a staff pick is made by the team. So it's not Ina staff picks or Sam staff picks. We will all watch everything and weigh in. So this festival process is now introducing a new way for us to bring new films onto the platform and give them a little bit of a prize, which is really nice, and we haven't been able to do that before with a cash prize. And in addition to staff picks, what we also do is this thing called Staff Pick Premieres, which Claudette mentioned, which we launched about a little over a year ago, which is we premiere a film on the platform once a week, every Wednesday, and we give it a little bit of extra love. We think of it as staff picks on steroids. We feature that film for 2 days all across Vimeo platforms. So on the front page of your Apple TV, on your Vimeo app, we write a blog post around it and do a lot of marketing to support that film. So it's a really great way to launch a short film into the world and reach hundreds of thousands of people sort of all overnight. So those are the sort of the 3 main programs, and now the Staff Pick Award has become this great new avenue for us to reach filmmakers.
Great. So along those lines, Sarah, you work with an organization that has a platform that shows films. You want to talk about that a little bit and how Condé Nast works?
Sure. So, so when I come to a film festival, or what, as we were discussing earlier, looking at films in advance to buy, and then maybe on the ground buying a film, the idea is that I would license the digital rights, and we would have the online premiere of a film. Say, for instance, Knife Skills, which we bought, the last film that we bought for The New Yorker. It's a 40-minute documentary about second chance hiring at a gourmet restaurant in Cleveland. And it's worth noting that our working sort of framework was, looking for films between like a few minutes. Our shortest film that we ever bought was probably 2.5 minutes, A Single Life, and then our longest was probably Joe's Violin at 20 minutes. And that was sort of just our working rule of thumb. Then I see Knife Skills, which runs 40 minutes, and sort of to Claudette's point earlier, I love being surprised, and that's a film that benefited from really strong pacing and doesn't have a lull in it, so you don't feel the 40 minutes. But going back to answer the question, that's a film that we bought all digital rights for, and we launched on The New Yorker, and basically the idea is to get as many eyes on it as possible. And our distribution platform, starts with our owned and operated site. So we did find it at thenewyorker.com, but then on top of that, we have an app on Apple TV. We have some distribution with Amazon Prime. We have a lot of activity on YouTube. Actually, all of our brands have, quote unquote channels on YouTube, and we have, I would say probably the lion's share of our views coming out of there for most brands. It varies brand to brand because of demographic distinctions in different demographics, but YouTube is a really strong platform for us. We're doing some distribution on Facebook as well, so we're totally omnivorous in terms of where we meet our viewers. So, and of course, the thing that's nice about digital is that's always changing. There's always a new player who's interested in partnering with us, so we're always keeping an open mind. There's a lot of new growth in OTT, cable set-top boxes, and apps that are built into hardware, whether it's a Blu-ray player or a TV. So, growth and distribution opportunities, it's just a constant flux in a good way. It seems like players are coming onto the scene, and from time to time they leave, but it seems to be going in a growth direction. So yeah, we're just really aggressive about getting our films out there, and the more views, the better. So.
Which is fantastic. So Jake, being the most traditional distributor here, you want to talk a little bit about how Gunpowder and Sky functions?
Yeah, totally. So we have a couple different lines of business, as I sort of alluded to before. We're producing feature films like around 4 a year in the sort of $1 million to $3 million range, all with sort of more first or sort of second time younger filmmakers, and trying to do stuff that is overall fairly young skewing. So we're always looking for, because we're working at a kind of lower indie budget level, and the kind of content that we want to be producing should appeal to like the sort of 16 to 30-ish demographic. By extension, we get to work with a lot of great up-and-coming filmmakers. So we do watch a lot of shorts when we're going through our development process, when we're looking for directors to attach to our projects, and that's a great way to sort of get people in the door. We're also producing a number of web series for Facebook Watch and YouTube Red, and we're doing something with Snapchat, and we did a series with Spotify and AT&T and all kinds of sort of newer streaming or mobile platforms. And a lot of times we've looked at one-off short content, like short films basically, and seen it has the potential to expand into a larger form project, and that's been something that we've taken on and worked with the filmmakers to kind of develop it into a multi-part series or a format that we could create a lot of episodes around. We also have a science fiction short film channel that we've built up over the past year. It's called Dust. It lives on Facebook and YouTube right now. The community's grown really fast. We saw a hole in the market in terms of identifying the audience for that sort of smarter, like Black Mirror-esque content, and the audience who's going to be attracted to that. So we do a lot of licensing of interesting short films and proof of concepts and thesis films from top film schools around the country, and put that out across our channels. We're launching a channel on Roku and Amazon Prime and a couple other platforms soon as well. So that's a great way that short films kind of fit into our larger business. And then, on the distribution side, like I said, it's for the most part feature film. So, I attend all of the major festivals like Sundance and South by in Toronto, and look for features and docs that feel like they align with our brand and kind of fit into our business model. And then we'll basically come up with a strategy for how to get the film out there. And I think one of the most important things, and this applies to making short films too, is we are always looking for filmmakers who have been thoughtful throughout the process in terms of understanding who the audience for the film is and who they're trying to reach. And I think, the more clear that is in the filmmaking and and what the producing team's goals are, I think the better. So, we come up with a strategy in terms of like, how do we reach the audience? What's the best way to push the film out? What platforms do we think this is going to overperform on? Is this a full kind of 90-day theatrical, or do you do a, theatrical and digital at the same time, or does it make sense to just sell to a platform like Netflix, et cetera? So, all of that stuff is taken into consideration, but, the feature film distribution space is very competitive right now. Well, it's twofold. It's competitive for the best content, but it's also sort of a buyer's market for a lot of sort of lower budget or first-time filmmaker stuff that's out there. So, it's always to our advantage to kind of get involved with projects as early as possible, and that's sort of a new trend in the distribution space is sort of boarding stuff at the script or even development stage, even if you are really only going to act as the distributor and not the actual producer of the film. So by extension, I track a lot of projects throughout their entire development cycle, and the next step in doing that is to start tracking filmmakers at the short stage, and that's something that I'm trying to get out of this weekend.
Great, thank you. So, I think what we're hearing is that there are a lot of options for distribution and people seeing your film. So I think the two big questions that are probably on people's minds are, how do I monetize if somebody's to pick up my film? And the other one is, how do I approach you and get in front of you? So anybody want to jump in with one of those and we can have a little conversation?
Sure. So we do pay license fees for most of our acquisitions. Every now and then, we'll see something that we're attracted to, but we know in our guts that it's such a dice roll that we feel like we can't responsibly offer money up front. So those cases are rare, but I will from time to time say to a filmmaker, hey, what you've created is really amazing. It's out of the box. It's not something we've done before. It feels too risky. If you're willing to take the leap with us, I'll do something like a no advance deal, but with view bonuses. So if it does turn out to be a proven success, and in that case, we're of course happy to pay after we have the information in hand. But for most of our acquisitions, we're paying a license fee. They're modest. Don't ask me for a number. I can't share that. But they're modest, and even in cases where we are paying a license fee, we will offer view bonuses, and we feel like that's fair in the context of the types of deals we're doing, because and it's akin to a lot of distribution deals for traditional distribution and all media deals for feature films. So it's nothing that revolutionary, but we're happy to do view bonuses. And in terms of other bonuses, sometimes we'll do awards bonuses, but you're probably not going to be laughing your way to the bank with a short film deal, maybe with Netflix, something like that. But that's. And then what was the second part of the question?
Well, I think I think
okay.
if we can head over there, and I'm sure people are going to have questions about a lot of this as well. Is there any monetization with Vimeo?
Right, so the Vimeo On Demand platform is a really great way for short filmmakers or any filmmaker, whether it's a feature length or web series, to self-distribute. If you're lucky enough to get a more traditional distribution deal, that's great, but a lot of films aren't able to make that happen. So the Vimeo On Demand platform is a really easy to use site to directly release your film to an audience. But it really requires filmmakers to do a lot of the legwork. We're not a traditional distributor, so we're not putting on a marketing campaign. So it's really on the filmmakers' hands to reach their audiences and do that work. But for a lot of filmmakers, it's proved to be a really great resource where they didn't have that opportunity elsewhere to monetize and set their own price. Vimeo takes a 10% cut, so it's $10.90, which is really great. And then in terms of just reaching us, we really look at the site. So filmmakers that are active on the site, really like their films will pop up for us. We are also active in the community, and we go to film festivals. So we're really approachable, even though we don't have a formal submissions process. One of our main goals is to build relationships with the people that are using our site. So we are definitely looking to hear about films that are planning to release on Vimeo, or films that are on Vimeo but maybe have slipped through our radar we want to take a look at.
Great. Jake, do you want to talk about Gunpowder and Skies?
Yeah, well, I would just say, to follow up on the previous comments, to be totally honest, we look at short films as there not necessarily being a lot of opportunities to monetize, just to be totally frank. And I think, if you are making a short, you should be doing it, one, because you love it and believe in the story, and two, because you want to use it as basically a calling card for doing larger projects where the business model is a little bit more developed and robust. So, I think that's sort of the main way that you should be thinking about making shorts. But, there are still opportunities to monetize content. There are, some outlets and platforms out there that that do pay license fees, like Conde Nast and Topic, which is owned by Field Division or partnered with Field Division, who has some shorts here, and a number of places take sort of editorialized content and will promote short form content. And I think if you are doing that as a filmmaker, you should always try to be getting license fees if it's from a kind of an established and recognizable brand. There's a couple other places out there around the world. There was a Shorts TV channel that was on. I don't know, are they still around?
Yeah, they're still around. Opdocs.
And some, international outlets for shorts as well. I also think that depending on the subject matter of the film, it's possible to get screening fees from taking the film to, one, on the festival circuit, and two, screening for different groups and communities and organizations that, might have an interest in screening your film. Now, obviously not every short film is going to have that sort of clear and direct subject matter that, you're going to be able to go and screen with, a community group or whatever it might be. But, I think it's important that when you're developing your project, you think about, what are the themes of the film, who's the kind of audience that this is going to speak to, and really do your research in terms of what are ways that I can be partnering with people who already have some sort of audience and community and Rolodex of people who are going to be inclined to want to see this film, whether it's in the horror space or in documentaries about specific social issues or any kind of theme. There's a lot of kind of social drama films here, and a lot of kind of nonprofits and different organizations who might be interested in supporting the film. So I think that's something that filmmakers should think critically about from the earliest stages of making a film.
That's great, thanks. So, all right, all of that said, Claudette, when you look at programming, how much or to any extent does any of this factor into your programming at all?
It does not factor in at all.
Okay, that's what I
Our
suspected.
program overall is pretty much we just
It's
do
all
whatever
for
we
the art.
want. It's all for picking the films that we love that are right for our audience, of course, and the people who are coming to South by to watch films, they know what they are. So they, no one's coming that's all I'm looking for is for stuff for the Hallmark Channel. They're not coming. So, and there's definitely people where it's what is this things you think that are right for us? And then I'm these 5 things. Right. Or another person who just started buying shorts is Neon. They're putting shorts with all the features they distribute. And they just started that last year where they're they all have to be under 5 minutes and a certain whatever. So they're what did you see this year? That so that's part of my job is just, giving that information to the right people. Because they're all always looking for it outside of just watching the films themselves of just what have you seen that could be useful. So I'm sort of more in this cheerleading, assisting role where I'm just I'll send this list of 20 films to Neon, and some of them are things that I didn't even program, just things I know about, because my job is more just to help the filmmakers understand that everything is actually their job. It's just become more like that. Like Jake was saying of it's on you, or even when your film goes on Vimeo, it's always going to be on you, even more so in the current marketplace of so if you are making films, it should be because this is what you have to do. not because you ever think you're ever going to get any money from a short or maybe even a feature, you know. It's like for the love of it, and yes, getting money is great, but you really have to have that passion, and you can see that when you're watching, you know, the amount of unfiltered stuff that I'm seeing. That's like, you can see that the difference between the content of people who are, you know, just doing it to do it, and the people who are like, this is what I have to make, you know.
Right.
The authenticity of it.
Yes, and I would also say that, you know, doing the festival circuit is in and of itself a form of distribution. You want to comment on that a little bit, since you are such a gatekeeper?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. I would definitely say anytime you take your film to any film festival, to try to be in that moment and really like enjoy that moment, because that may be the only time you ever see your film with that many people or with an audience. And so that's kind of like its own special, you know, feeling to absorb. But also, what were you saying that film festivals are like distribution?
Well, you know, a lot, and to some extent, you know, just the role of the film festival
well,
over the last several years, and how many festivals there are now, and how often in, you know, certain cities will have a Shortsfest. I mean, we have 3 festivals in a town in the town of Aspen, so it's really become a thing and a way to get your film out there in front of a variety of different audiences.
Yeah, I think the number one thing, because somehow people still don't know. I mean, it does matter. Okay, there's that extent of like, yes, you know, Sundance and I like have really open rules of like, we'll play anything, even if it's been on the internet. And like, it's so funny because sometimes I'll do like a poll of like, has anyone ever seen this movie? I'm like, it has 5 million views on the internet and was like super popular, but people still haven't seen it all.
Still a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, is that the number one thing to get out of film festivals is like, number one, if you're getting into film festivals, you should be going to the film festivals, because otherwise you're missing that opportunity, which is the biggest opportunity, is to like get into that community, that especially if you're making your first or second work, is like the people that you can meet and the relationships you can build. Like pretty much all of my closest friends are people that I met at film festivals or filmmakers who have had films at South by, and that's kind of the greatest thing about going to a big festival, is that building that kind of community. Every year we have films that are coming back that, you know, I'm like, wait, how did you meet this other person? They're like, we met at South by 5 years ago when they had this short, and they, you know, like where the connections you make and the community you build up is like the number one greatest thing. And that's why taking your short around to festivals and getting to meet all of those people, and that can like take you to the next level. And honestly, like for sure, most of the people that are having shorts at South by like are getting something, some kind of return out of that. If it's like an agent, a manager, a person who wants to help make their feature or whatever. I'd also say the number one thing is like, if you go to a festival, and, you know, Ray said this the other day, is like the question you're going to be asked is, what else do you have? So if you make one movie, you better show up with like your next 5 ideas within some kind of format where you can easily share them, because it's always like the time is the essence. So it's like if you're at the festival, you meet someone and they ask you, or you have a conversation, it's like you need to be able to like put it in front of them right then before they move on to the next kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's exactly. Did you want to add something, Jake?
No, I was just going to say absolutely. Like, yeah, I think, you know, while the work, you know, will really speak for itself, if it's good, I think that's going to really shine through. You know, having not just a strong premiere, but, you know, especially with shorts, less so with features, I think having the full sort of circuit of having hit a lot of the sort of major shorts festivals is a really good differentiator. So if you're gonna, you know, play your film on the festival circuit as a short, I would suggest kind of going all in and trying to hit as many of the strong ones as possible. And, you know, obviously there's kind of different tiers in terms of the quality of programming and stuff like that. So definitely, you know, do your research. And some really strong festivals are kind of only good for features, and the shorts kind of take a second priority. But there's other festivals where the shorts are really kind of the centerpiece, such as here. And I think you want to be strategic about what festivals you're playing. And yeah, I mean, coming to the festivals that you're playing is a great way to meet a lot of people really quickly, and you know, keep the momentum going. But yes, absolutely agree that if you are playing your short in a festival, you should attend and have something to talk about in terms of what you want to do next.
All right, well, this leads us right into the next question. If a lot of these people would like to have conversations, what's what's the best approach to reaching out to you individually? Either you to get in front of you with the film, Ina to talk to you about getting on Vimeo, Sarah and Jake in terms of I want to show this to you because I think it would be great for your platform.
Well, where are you going? Go. Oh. If you're in a place where you're actually meeting the people, then that's the number one way of like, yes, you can like send your movie or we can talk about it and like have a bigger conversation or, you know, maybe continue it on email. But definitely like for film festival programmers, like you can cold email me. I'm just gonna like let the person who runs our Film Fest email account respond and tell you thank you and you're great. But at this point, the volume is so high that really the only way to like pop a film up is like for someone that I know, like for Ina or someone to say, oh, I really like this film. So if you know someone that knows them, you can get the recommendation. But at the end of the day, like it's still about the volume. Like probably people recommended like 500 plus shorts to me last year, and you know, I took less than 100.
500 did you
Yeah, yeah.
Did you watch all 500?
Yeah, it's a lot. So, you know, I mean, it's cool if someone recommends something and then I love it, but a lot of times, you know, it's just, there's so little space. So I think it's like, before you move on, just to like talk about this festival thing a little bit more, it's like, you need to be strategic about where you're, you know, submitting. Definitely don't waste your money. Like this, the best example is I used to program for Fantastic Fest in Austin, and it's all genre. And people were submitting and spending $50 to send their romantic comedy or their Hallmark movie there because they're like, my movie's fantastic, because they didn't even take 5 minutes to figure out that this place doesn't even play this type of work. So definitely being strategic about the places that show your work. Definitely if you're in any kind of like niche at all, go to those festivals. Like if you can get into the Jewish festival or, you know, like Cine Las Americas in Austin, like target the places where you can get that extra love in any way, or if it's about the, you know, the theme of your short or whatever. And then, yeah, don't get discouraged because everyone's getting rejected. And
There's
you
so many
definitely,
doors to
yeah, and you don't have to know anyone because pretty much,
The work should
yeah,
speak for
well,
itself.
yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, I personally rejected over 500 people that I know in life. So, and obviously we would never have these new filmmakers for everyone to meet if I was just programming the same people that we all already know. We're always looking, and it's always just like about your work. It's all about the work and how and what you're doing. So don't let that discourage you, because there are also way too many films, way too many good films. There are several films that are playing here that I really liked, but in the end we didn't have room for them, and then now they're here. So you'll find your life, you'll find your path, but also definitely, if you are applying to Sundance, a South by, something on a larger level, Toronto, then you want to, before you accept the whatever small thing in your own town, check with Sundance, check with South by, and say, hey, I got accepted to this. We may not ever have an answer. We might have an answer. If we do, we'll tell you. Say, hey, you know, we started doing rolling rejections where we send out a rejection every month to free people up to go and pursue other opportunities and like move on from like waiting. But definitely check in first, because then if you've like, you know, gone to 5 tiny film festivals right before South by, while we don't only play premieres, it's like, oh man, we definitely still want to premiere stuff. So it's a mix. And so, you know, when the more things you take away, like the longer your film is, it's played on the internet, it's premiered at a festival a year ago, like that takes it lower and lower on the list as opposed to something that's like newer and fresher. So make sure you're paying attention just like the calendar year of like where you're starting with the film, and don't think like festivals aren't like monoliths where no one cares. It's like you can email them and someone will email you back. And they may not be the answer you want, but so if your film's already out of the loop, we'll say you should definitely go there. Or if it's kind of on the thing, we can say, you know, we're not sure, but you know, you should probably go there. It's your decision. Or we'll say, actually, we love your film. Please, you know, wait for us. So it's good to check that out, because even still now, filmmakers that have had more than one film at a festival are telling me that they like didn't check with Cannes and then they did this other thing or whatever, you know, like, so just, you know, you can always check in. Festivals exist because we love movies and we want to show your great, amazing work because we love you, not because it's just like some place that takes money. I mean, there are those places, so definitely pay attention when you're on the submission train of like, you know, submitting to the right places. But anyway, okay, sorry for that rant. Sorry for that rant. But you should just email. If you have a question, just email. Like we email everybody back within like 24 hours pretty much. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
In terms of being approached by filmmakers, in theory, we our standing policy is we don't accept unsolicited submissions. That being said, I'm much more receptive to giving a second look, or at least giving, referring the film to someone on the team to watch, if you write a thoughtful cover letter. If it's just sort of like, here's something that seems like an email blast, and here I made a short film, please watch it, that in all likelihood will not get considered. That's not gonna, you're not doing yourself any favors with a submission like that. But if you say, here, I made this film, I've watched your programming on fill in the blank with one of our brands, I've seen your programming on Glamour, I've seen your programming on Wired, and this film, is in, a genre or a sensibility that connects to your programming ethos on that particular brand, and I really think it's going to be relevant. So showing a thoughtful consideration of the type of programming that we do, which is not to suggest that we only want to program in a narrow lane and keep programming stuff that we've done in the past. It's actually quite the contrary. But if you show a clear understanding of a particular brand and the themes and the ideas and the I would also go so far as to say like the spirit of it. Like GQ, for instance, would never program anything earnest. Like even if it's about one of their core themes, like hip hop or men's fashion, like they just don't do earnest. So it's as much about sort of spirit and vibe as it is about a given theme. So so knowing our content and knowing our programming strategies, and then just sort of echoing what Jake was saying earlier about when you're talking to someone on the ground, in addition to being able to speak about upcoming projects, I would also encourage you to think about speaking to your strengths, because I hate to sound like I'm pigeonholing filmmakers, but I like to think about, like, if we have a commission opportunity in-house at one of our brands, I want to be able to think like, who's really good at breathing life into a character portrait, because character portraits can be really static, and sort of like who's done that well in an innovative way, and just without feeling like you're thumping your chest too much, but really think about, hey, these are my strengths. This is what I have a demonstrated track record in terms of performance. I think that's something that filmmakers don't do enough, and I think it's good to be able to sort of plant a seed in a buyer or a producer's head and say, hey, this should be my go-to person for this type of a commission.
Helpful. Ina?
Sure. So one of the things I forgot to mention about the Staff Pick Premieres program is that screening at any Academy qualifying festival makes you eligible to submit for that program. So Aspen Shortsfest, for example, is an Academy qualifying festival. So any film that's screened here at any time, whether it's in the next 6 months or next year, they've decided they've pursued all of their different avenues, and they've done a distribution deal, and they've done all the festivals they want to do, and they want to release online, that's a really great way to get in touch with us. Obviously, being in the room and making a personal connection is the best way, but we like to think of Vimeo as a platform that's like servicing people that aren't just able to go to film festivals. So I think you have to be very strategic and think about like where your film is going to find its audience, and for a lot of filmmakers, that's online. So we encourage filmmakers to reach out to us in those cases. We are available on the Vimeo site. You can message us on the site, so there's definitely ways to get to us. Again, it's like thousands and thousands of messages, so it's not always the best way. But then also be strategic, even if you're not a Vimeo staff pick, about how to reach your audience. You choose a really great thumbnail. Use their festival laurels in a smart way. Don't just throw every festival that you've played on there. Be selective about the date and time that you release it, and all of the marketing that you're going to do around the film. A Vimeo staff pick is a really great way to reach an audience on Vimeo and online, but I think if you're smart, and even if you're working with like Topic or whoever, the filmmakers doing that organic outreach, and like you have a community that's going to support your film, like building that groundswell around your film is really important, regardless of how you're releasing it.
Great. Jake, you talked a little bit about, interacting with filmmakers and wanting to get a first look, but how are you in terms of being approached?
I mean, we get stuff submitted from all over the place, and I get a ton of direct submissions from filmmakers. I think, there's sort of two sides of it, I think, specifically around shorts, because, like I said, 95% of my job is not oriented around shorts, and we're looking at literally hundreds of feature films every quarter. So I think it's twofold in terms of like getting in touch with us and putting something in front of us. I think first, it's either, you can get in touch with us directly. I mean, we have a kind of general mailbox, or, if we meet at places like this, I'm happy to give out my own email, or, on my team. But I think if you email me, like, along the lines of what Sarah said, it should be thoughtful in terms of why I should be watching this, and I don't necessarily want to just see, like, here's my short, I did it on, my vacation from work, and, like, that's it. Please check it out. That's not really going to go that far for me in terms of, like, how I use my time effectively. So I think, if you say, like, this is my short, and, it's a proof of concept for this feature idea I have, and here's the feature, and here's the status of it, and here's who I'm working with, and this is why I think it would be great for your company, because I know this is kind of what you guys are looking for, and here's previous films that you've done, and this is why I think it's a strong fit. That's going to get you farther in terms of consideration than just like, here's a link to my short, let me know what you think. And then alternatively, if you don't have all of those materials ready, I think the other good way that I look at stuff is just kind of through the proper channels, and I think a lot of that is coming from managers and agents in terms of them promoting their clients, and obviously they have a sort of gatekeeper function in the industry, and they're trusted sources, and I think that's helpful. Well, I sometimes have mixed feelings about their overall value add, but I think depending on the project, of course. But I think that a lot of these places have really good track records and consistency in terms of supporting great talent, and obviously you take it more seriously coming from a sort of trusted source.
Yeah. Thanks. That's all super helpful. So I think one of the big takeaways: do your homework, know your audience, know who you're reaching out to, have an understanding of the distinctions between Gunpowder and Sky and Conde Nast, and how ENA works. I guess I think I like the point that you made about managers and agents and representatives, which we haven't really touched on. Some of you may have been around yesterday where we did have a packaging agent on our panel talking about getting your film made. So Peter touched on that a bit. I guess, Claudette, I just want to throw that to you. As a programmer, do you get a lot of material directly from agents, or are you finding more that it's South by the agents are coming to you to track the talent?
It's both. I mean, it's the same as, every situation is like, you want to use every advantage you have. So it's like you submit your film, your agent's emailing us about it, they're checking in on the status, they do that like leg work a little bit for you. I mean, depending on who your agent is. But it's the same as like, if he said, hey, check this out, or Ina said, hey, check this out, I'm like, cool. Peter Trin said I should watch this. And that does mean that I should watch it because he knows, because it sort of all comes back to just people knowing what the taste is. Exactly. It's like Peter has seen so much stuff. He's worked with so many filmmakers from South by. He knows what I like. Or is sometimes like, hey, this might not be to your taste, but I think you should still check it out or whatever. Right. And that kind of like personal touch to things is always the number one most important thing. So that is meaning like be nice and kind to every person you ever meet. Like don't reply to your personal rejection from me by saying, well, fuck you anyway, because that means you're basically out, and that means you're out for all these people and all the people that I know that like get forwarded that email and we laugh about it, like because that doesn't hurt, or I guess it's like a resentment, like if you're mad about something, that's only hurting you. So you're only hurting your own chances, like send that to your mom or someone else that is caring more about your feelings and can help you to deal with rejection or whatever. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's only gonna hurt you. So always, meet as many people as you can, be as kind as you can, be as nice as you can, help everybody you can, because that's how you get people to wanna be, it's like be a good human, and that will help you so much further in your filmmaking career than you can possibly believe. Because it's just that kind of thing where like you bring up someone's name and everyone's like, yeah, that guy, like, ugh, just if you don't conduct yourself like in a awesome way. So that's the best way.
So life lessons from the Wheeler Opera House here in Aspen.
Sorry, guys.
That's awesome. Thank you. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with the agent manager question, but I do think that for a lot of people out there, it's a little bit of a chicken or egg. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying, well, I need an agent or a manager in order to get my film made, but oftentimes the short film is the calling card to get you there. So
Yeah, you don't need an agent to make a movie.
Take
Take your
go to the Kodak workshop
save
at 2 o'clock.
$50 a month until you have enough money to like make something that will make you happy, and then go make that, because that's how you're gonna that's the way you really become a legitimate filmmaker, is like making great work, because that will get you, like, so many of the shorts are getting their agents from coming to South by, and almost none of those people have agents, like maybe like 1 or 2 things, and it's probably because it's someone going back to like make something they always wanted to make, or whatever, or it's like their second short after they made something more simple, they're getting a little bit bigger. So you definitely don't need an agent to get started. I mean, look, you don't need anything to get started. You just need you gotta go shoot whatever resources you can pull together and go get it done, which is like all the most successful filmmakers I know, that's what they did, and that's what they're still doing. So that's the focus. You don't worry about all the other shit. Make what you want to make. That's how you get into a film festival. That's how you write a great email to them, and they'll watch your movie and respond to it. It's all about the work. And then when you make that great work, the rest of it just falls into place. It starts to fall into place.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think we're going to open it up to some questions now. Yes, Mike.
What are your favorite forms of bribery?
The question was, what are your favorite forms of bribery?
You know what? Strangers actually don't send bribes anymore, because they don't send anything. Because now that everything's a link, we used to get tons of great random ass shit. Somebody once sent a hula hoop for every person in our office. I was like, what is this? But now, because they're not mailing anything, they don't throw anything in with it. So people actually don't offer me bribes that much.
But if they were to.
We can talk. It depends on what it is. It's going to have to be pretty high level. And also, it will only work if you made also a great movie. But I'll take the bribe with the movie. I like things.
Bring me a great script, too.
I worked festivals for many years, and one year somebody submitted their film that was about a hot sauce competition with a bunch of the different hot sauces that were featured in the film. We didn't end up selecting the film, but it was delicious. That was my favorite.
I regrettably have no bribery tales to tell. So.
I have a really creepy off-topic one. This year, someone who got rejected came to town, flew to Austin, got pizzas custom made with the title of their film in meats, spelling out their movie, and delivered it to South by and said, hey, I just had to tell my mom I got something into South by by bringing something in. Of course, we had to throw those pizzas away because that's crazy. But that's the best story we've had in a while. It was a lot, especially because it was the busiest time. So everyone thought it was just the receptionist was like, oh, hey, y'all's pizza are here. And I was like, oh, cool, someone ordered us pizza. And then instead it was a sad filmmaker who had brought us unsolicited, creepy pizzas. I have photos of that. If you want to see it later, let me know. I do. It's so weird. So weird.
Okay. Yes, Claudette. I'm sorry, Opal. Cousin. The question was for anyone on the panel, do you have a case study of a short that you think really did it well, and can you talk about that a little? Joe's Violin.
I'll say Joe's Violin was a film that was a pleasure to work on for a number of very different reasons. It was good. First and most important hurdle. It was very, very good, and again, the conventional wisdom in digital distribution is shorter is better, longer is going to be more of an uphill battle. And again, like knife skills, the pacing was really tight, 22 minute running time notwithstanding, and just grab you by the lapels from minute go. That's something that I think is very important when you're considering digital distribution. Pacing trumps running time every time, and if you start quickly and if you engage your viewer quickly, you get a lot of patience and goodwill. Like, you just have to win them over quickly. And, you know, slow burn, delayed payoff, not the realm of digital distribution, in my humble opinion. But so plot twists, you know, save that for your feature. So going back to this specific example of Joe's violin, it's emotionally bracing. They brought a lot of a heart to it. You know, I defy someone to watch that film and be dry-eyed at the end. I mean, I watched it 7 times every damn time. I was weeping. It took me a long time to even talk about it without crying. It's excellent. First hurdle crossed. Secondly, the filmmakers, both the director and the producer, extremely professional. Like, they did not take a step without thinking about it, talking to people who might know better than they did, and really armed themselves thoughtfully for every strategic move. I mean, they happen to be, you know, grown-up industry professionals, so they had the benefit of experience. But, you know, you see people with the same, you know, similar time in the field who are a little more reckless or from the hip, but they were just thoughtful every step of the way. Festival strategy, doing a theatrical qualifying run to qualify for an Oscar, being mindful of, you know, many people here have talked about, you know, sort of the moving parts of, so to speak, of, you know, the sort of the festival calendar. You grab this opportunity that might seem shiny at the moment, but consider what opportunities down the line that you might exclude yourselves from inadvertently. So they were very mindful of the moving parts. And then, again, echoing off of what other people were saying, third, they were extremely hands-on every step of the way. And, you know, some filmmakers are sort of like, here, we're so thrilled you bought our film, do a great job, fingers crossed. They were the opposite. Every consideration, you know, from PR to release date, and they were, you know, you don't want to be annoying. You don't want to second guess your distributor because that will alienate you, and you want to make them your friend. So they were just walking that tightrope of asking all the hard questions and never taking anything for granted, but still being pleasant to work with, because that is a fine line. You don't want to cross it and become that person who, you know, you don't want to take their phone calls. You don't want to, you know, open their emails. You know, their questions were always to, you know, there's always a clear objective. You know, they felt like fruitful collaborators. You know, teaming up with them felt like there was something good would be yielded, versus just like, this person is needy, this filmmaker is impossible to please. They felt like collaborators. So I would say those 3 things, you know, make a good film, be thoughtful about all of the interwoven decisions you're going to encounter along the way, and be hands-on, but be constructive. So
Those are great.
A recent example, which was the film that we selected for the Vimeo Staff Pick Award at South by Southwest. I was really impressed with their strategy. They were selected for the award.
What's the film called?
Krista, directed by Danny Madden, which we really loved. And as part of the award, the film was to be released on Vimeo the next day. They went home that night after the award ceremony, recorded a Kickstarter video for their feature, and launched the feature Kickstarter with the video on Vimeo the next day, knowing that they would have all of this extra attention because of the award. They won an acting prize at South by Southwest, so they also used all of that press to sort of push their Kickstarter campaign, and now they're making their feature. And ultimately, that was their goal, so this was a smart strategy for this film. They want to make films and they want to get them out there. Sure, there might be some festivals down the road that might disqualify them because they're online, but at the end of the day, these filmmakers, that's not their priority. It's reaching as many people as possible and raising money to keep making films. So they were very smart about that quick turnaround and using all of that momentum to really get a lot of energy around the film. And it's been really successful. They reached their goal in no time.
They stayed up all night long. That's a pretty great story. When I figured out that they were leaving the party, they're like, we gotta go make a movie. I was like, what? And then in the morning, they're like, we stayed up all night. We're going to bed now. I'm like, all right. Those same filmmakers, this is like the collaboration thing that everybody's talking about, is that those filmmakers work with a group of people that is mostly affiliated with this group, or Nana, that is their kind of like production team, and they all work together to make each other's projects. So Danny, who directed that, also has produced a lot of films with other people in that group, one of which is Jim Cummings, who had the short that won at Sundance 2 years ago, 3? 2. I'm looking at Landon, he don't know. 2016, yes, so 2 years ago. They had the short version of Thunder Road that won, and they basically like took all of the resources going from that, played at South by, and it did have a really good festival run, had a great online run, and then they turned that into a feature just by, always continuing to work with each other and do the support. So it's like those same people that made that movie are like staying up all night so that they can make Danny's movie, because their main goal as a team is like, we're trying to make every person's movie. So they take turns like producing for each other, different people directing. So I'd say like for them, and they just like take whatever resources they can. And also they are very known for offering as much help as they can. So they're like some, oh God, I can't think of her name, but she came to Austin. She like just found them on the internet, is in film school elsewhere, and was like, hey, can I come work on your movie? And they're like, yes. Like they're always trying to help other people make their movies and being like kind of like this great community of helpers. So I think that's really part of what's important about it. But I mean, all the great case studies I know are just people who like took whatever it is they had and then made something amazing and came out of like left field. I always use Krisha which is a close name to Krista, but Krisha as a great example.
That was a South by winner last year, 2017?
No, this was like a while ago, because it was the short. They tried to make the feature with like their family at home, Trey, the director, and like it didn't really work out, and he kind of like left it sitting around for a year, and then he went back to it and cut it into this short. And he's from Houston. He was like living with his parents, and I don't even get to call people anymore because we're so busy, but I called him to accept the short. I was like, I love this, because I was, like Vimeo autoplays for me, so it was like playing through, and I like had gotten distracted by an email, and it had started playing, and I was like, wait, what is this? Like it distracted me away from doing something else. And so I, started over. I'm like, this is so amazing. And it ended up, when I called him, he's like, yeah, like I moved back in with my parents so I can like have money to make this movie, and how, what the struggle was. It ended up coming to South by. It won a Shorts Award, and then, they went to Cannes. And now he has a great story online. I don't need to like go through his whole life, but now has made 2 features for A24 by just continuing to always focus on the work and like starting, like I'm just using it as an example of like, even if you think you don't have anything, use what you have and like make the most authentic thing you can make. And that's a really boring story. If you like pitch that movie, it's like, oh, it's a family at Thanksgiving like having a hard time. Like we already have that in our life. We don't need to watch that, but he did it in a really unique, special way that really resonated with people. So,
thank you guys. That's great. Anyone else? Anything? Yes.
It's like a waiting game.
So the question is, I'm looking to launch a film. I've gotten advice to go broad, but how do you be strategic at the same time?
I don't think you should go broad. I think it's just go big first. So, like try to get into Sundance or Cannes or South by before you go to your hometown festival, which is also great. But you can do that after. What?
This is her hometown festival.
Oh, awesome. No, well, then this is an exception. I'm just saying there are a lot of really, like where it's a one day, very small, wherever it is. Like, I'm sure it's also great, but, if you are trying to break into the bigger community, you want to go where that community is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the other thing, this is just a very easily accessible piece of information, but you should also look at the list of Academy qualifying festivals. It's right there. Google it. It's a great way to distill the vast number of options. So, yeah.
Yeah, because you have to do a lot of paperwork to become Academy qualified, and it's like a whole thing. So if a festival has reached that point and they're saying the people that are winning those festivals are qualified, that's a definite good marker. Yeah. I would say also definitely watch the other films. Like back in the day, you couldn't really do that very easily, but now like I have my summer intern just like I have a Vimeo channel that has every single movie that is on the internet that's played in the shorts programs for the last like 10 years. So like go to that and watch the work and be like, oh, my movie's nothing like this, great. Or it is like this. So, everything's so accessible now. So just try to see, when people email me and they're like, what kind of movies do you play? I'm like, do some researcher work. Here's a link, enjoy. Like, that's part of it. Yeah.
Great. Any other guests?
Yeah, so if we've made a short film and we've had to do some licensing already to use DVD covers or posters and whatnot, and then we're trying to monetize before we come to someone like you, what avenues do we have to go down to clear all those channels first that might have given us a festival waiver or to use it for free if it's for free use?
So the question is, if you've done some licensing and you need to clear a lot of that out before monetizing, what's the best way to get that done?
It's a case-by-case scenario. I mean, it's reassuring to me that you're thinking about that, and that's a smart question that shows that you're a good producer, filmmaker. I would say, we've encountered issues with this. In terms of underlying IP, music is often very tricky. We tried desperately to buy Thunder Road, for instance. And we tried 6 Ways to Sunday to buy that film, and we just couldn't buy it because they weren't able to clear that track. In some cases, we've worked on a film where they had uncleared. I can't remember the name of it, but it's just a general example. But they had uncleared music that they liked, but it wasn't inherent to the film. So we have access to. We have a subscription to a large music library, and we were able to replace a track or maybe even 2. And it was at a nominal expense, and so I think we covered that. But if you do want not proper distribution, but monetizable distribution down the line, it is important to at least know your costs. And I think the one other thing I'd say about it is you're probably better off just trying every means necessary to try to clear what you can up front, because if you go to a distributor and you say, hey, I've got $5,000 of outstanding music licensing costs, that could just be a deal breaker. And I think as you're you can play play the poor filmmaker as you're talking to a record label or a gallery who's representing an artist or something, you can probably negotiate more favorable terms. But coming with a big price tag like at the beginning of a negotiation, that can be problematic.
I think we have time for one more. Anyone? All right. Anyone have any closing remarks they'd like to add before we conclude?
Be nice.
Be nice.
Make a good movie.
All right. So thank you all for coming out, and thank you so much to our amazing panelists. Second reminder, Kodak Workshop, Aspen Public Library, 2 to 4 p.m. Go play with the camera. And we'll be back here at 2:30 for program 8, and then we have another at 5:15 and 8 o'clock tonight. And come on out to Silver City for the 90s dance party. Tickets available online if you do not have a badge. Thanks.